You know, we always ask ourselves the question of addictions and what they really are, but in order to really find the answer, we gotta look what's in here, and then we'll figure out what's around us. So, we're always constantly seeing things, figuring it out, but we never really truly understand the science and the in-depth detail of what's going on up in our brains. Everything we view, everything that we talk about, and everything that we see, and basically anything that we do, it all has an effect on our view in life and our thinking.
So really, what is this thing that we call our brain? We all have it, but we sometimes forget that it controls and dominates our lives more than we can ever think of. Our brain is the powerhouse, the control system of every single action that we do and every single thing that we do. We go through our daily lives sometimes forgetting this, but it's always good to look back and see. Consisting of many different parts, our brain has a lot of different functions that we're unaware of or can't really control every day in our lives, like the beating of our heart or the digestion of our food. Our brain is constantly doing work without us even noticing it. So an addiction is the fact or condition of being addicted to a particular substance, thing, or activity. In today's society, addiction is a very common occurrence in the form of caffeine, alcohol, or even our phones. You can see anything as an addiction, really, pretty much wherever you go, every day in our lives.
Using an addictive substance changes the brain. It's as if a switch is turned on inside the brain. And when that switch is turned on inside the brain, it makes the person dependent on the substance. The development of addiction consists of two parts in the brain: the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system. The prefrontal cortex is the rational part of the brain. It controls the decision-making process. And on the other hand, however, we got the limbic system, which controls emotions and motivations. And it is the second part of the brain that is used in an addiction. These parts of the brain are basically separated from the conscious brain. This is when we have an addiction.
When these two parts of the brain are active in the addictive cycle, it's the limbic system that is the emotional and the desire-driven part of the brain, and it really goes against the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is, you could say, the willpower part of your brain. It's the thing that allows you to resist, to keep going forward, and to get things done. And without that ability, you can't really get out of an addiction quite easily. You could get yourself lost even more easily. When we think addiction, we usually think of drugs like cocaine, heroin, alcohol, but studies are showing more and more relations to normal things in our lives, and that anything, almost anything, can be just as addictive as hardened drugs, as long as it has the same effect on our brains. When you're exposed, there's a constant battle going on between your limbic system and the prefrontal cortex.
When exposed to cravings over time and having positive effects or feel, the brain becomes conditioned and is stimulated by reminders or exposure of the substance.
So, we got a lot of ground to cover when we're talking about addictions. But to make it easier, we can break every single aspect of our lives down and see where an addiction leaks. From what we eat to what we're exposed to on the internet, television, any type of media. They all have a good effect, but they also have a bad effect on us. And those bad effects we can sometimes get caught in pretty easily.
TV addiction is when a person has a compulsion to watch television shows. It's parallel to other addictions like drug, alcohol, or gambling. Almost anyone can be addicted to TV or any other source of media.
Everything around us all has an influence on what we do. We go by them not knowing what they are and how they work with our relation to our thinking. Our society is constantly flashing at us the need to feel better, right now, through the media. You can find yourself lost in this almost every day, but because it's always around us constantly, we are conditioned to forget how demanding these commercials can be to satisfy ourselves as quickly as possible. Easy ways out that only last in the short term, not in the long term. Sooner or later, you see that what you thought would be a way out is only to return afterwards. An image or type of media that gives us a stimulation effect in our brains, it is then very easy to be stuck to wanting more of the same thing and therefore being hooked on that one thing. Media especially has the ability to bring you into its view and leave you wanting for more, so that eventually you keep buying or satisfying the demand and are satisfying the company's growth.
Cell phones, emails, and laptops dominate our lives every day. While it's good to get connected to our family and friends, we should always know the difference between being addicted and being connected.
Say it personally, I'm probably addicted to my phone. I can barely put it down and hold a conversation with someone without getting antsy. But I'm not the only one. It's a huge deal in many people's daily lives, not just mine.
Using the things around us every day, like social media, all types of technology, like television or our phones, you get yourself in a situation of a double-edged sword. All these things have a good effect, but at the same time they have a bad one as well. That bad one can put pretty big consequences on our lives. It all depends on how you use this technology. For instance, if you're using social media to gather a group of friends, then that's a pretty good thing. But if you're using it constantly so that you can communicate to those friends that you could outside with, well, that's just a blockage of a relationship and friendship that could have gone much better. Studies show that 57% of people talk to people more online than they do in real life. This is more than half of us looking for a relationship or connection to other people through a virtual reality that isn't really natural, depriving us from what we really need, face-to-face contact and talk. It's easy to find yourself lonely, and sometimes it's very easy as well to believe that this social media and all this technology helps us to communicate much better than if you were face-to-face with someone. Our self-esteem can greatly affect the way we feel about ourselves and whether or not we can cope with any problem we have. Whether we feel good or bad about ourselves determines how we get out of an addiction.
Don't let it pass. Don't let it pass.
The brain is like a muscle.
And in order to really be able to get free of this addiction, you gotta work that muscle. You know, sometimes we catch ourselves and we wonder, how can I really get out of this? Well, you quickly find out that you gotta put in the work, and then that's when the journey starts to everlasting freedom.
For me, what's more significant is the way that we socially regard the condition of addiction. It's something that I consider to be an illness and therefore more a health matter than a criminal or judicial matter.
Think about that for a second. So when you combine that story with the golden rule of behavior modification, to break a habit, you must make a habit. What must you do? What does this mean? What does this tell us about the cure? Here's the reality. No matter what modality you choose in your path to get well, at the end, when you are successful, when you are looking in the mirror, you will see a man of action, a man that's doing something, and a man with a passion for life.
It answers this problem of addiction. It gives the path out of addiction. It helps you to understand how to overcome addiction.
Pretty much anyone can be caught in an addictive cycle, be it alcohol, video games, or anything really, even social media. But not enough people seek out the help they need. But if you just look for help in your loved ones or rehabilitation centers, you can help to break the cycle of addiction and get yourself back on your feet.
It's always good to seek help from your family and friends. It's good to share what's going on around you and what's going on the inside.